My daughter asked if we could split a happy meal on a Friday night. That's when I knew something was broken, deep down, marrow deep. I was 34, working full-time in inventory logistics for a mid-sized distribution firm in the armpit of Indiana, running spreadsheets by day, doing microwave ramen math by night. Rent, gas, school lunch, repeat. Life was a tightrope walk in a wind tunnel, but I had it balanced until Darren arrived. Darren, the new VP of Ops with teeth too white and handshake too firm, like he'd studied villainy in a YouTube seminar called How to Look Like You Care While Ruining Lives. He showed up in week 1 and gutted our overtime policy like a deer on opening day. No more weekend pay premiums, he said, like it was a TED-worthy innovation. You're salaried professionals. Act like it. Salaried. I made $19.50 an hour and still brought my own toilet paper to work because they stocked one ply. The man moved through our department like mold on Wonder Bread, quiet at first, then suddenly everywhere. Within 2 weeks, mandatory weekend rotations appeared on the whiteboard in dry erase like a death sentence. When I asked what happened to the overtime form we used to fill out, Darren smiled like he'd already killed my dog. Work harder. Grateful, he said. That was his mantra. Said it like a joke, but every time it landed like a threat wrapped in a khaki polo. I didn't fight back, not then. None of us did. You don't bark at the boots stepping on your neck, you just pray they step lighter next time. I kept my head down, stayed late, worked Saturdays and Sundays while my daughter learned how to microwave hot dogs by herself. She's 8. She should be playing, not Googling how long cheese lasts unrefrigerated because I passed out after a double shift. Hey, if you're still here, and you've ever had to pretend you're fine while unraveling like cheap Christmas lights, maybe toss us a follow. 97% of people listening to these stories never subscribe, and believe me, it means a hell of a lot to the team making this happen. Helps us keep the lights on, figuratively and literally. Back to Darren, the smirk king. He wasn't content with squeezing our hours, he needed to humiliate too. In team meetings, he'd single me out for asking clarifying questions. Rebecca thinks she's at Harvard, he'd chuckle while the rest of the team looked anywhere but my face. I stopped talking in meetings. My daughter stopped asking when I'd be home. We both learned silence. The final kick, PTO requests began disappearing. Just gone, like I'd never submitted them. I checked the system. Pending manager review, always pending. Forever floating in digital purgatory, while Darren told us, vacations are a mindset, not a location. He turned a workplace into a panic room. Every Slack message felt like a landmine. Every unscheduled meeting was a guillotine. People started walking on eggshells with steel-toed boots. HR? They drank the Darren Kool-Aid so fast you'd think it was flavored with stock options. When I finally built up the nerve to submit a formal complaint, HR told me I lacked a collaborative mindset. Translation? Shut up or ship out, but I didn't ship out, not yet. I started saving things, quietly, obsessively, screenshots, timesheets, Slack threads, email headers. I became a digital hoarder of corporate sins. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I knew I had to keep it. Like a woman spotting clouds before a tornado. Because something told me Darren's storm wasn't done with us yet. It was the weekly team sync, the kind where everyone stares at their Zoom windows like prisoners hoping for early release. I wasn't even planning to speak. I was tired, my eyes stung from lack of sleep, and my left contact lens had gone rogue and folded somewhere behind my eyelid. But when Darren mentioned that high performers embrace challenge without asking about compensation, something in me snapped. Sorry, are we saying weekend work is mandatory and unpaid now? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, like I wasn't 3 seconds away from rage sobbing into my keyboard. Darren's smile froze into that special kind of corporate condescension. Well, folks, he said, spinning his chair slightly to face the camera like he was hosting a game show, looks like Rebecca's still clinging to old expectations. Maybe if she spent less time worrying about time cards and more time contributing, we'd have our Q3 targets locked. Laughter. Nervous, scattered, but it was there. From people I'd shared breakroom coffee with, people who'd once passed me notes during all-hands meetings like we were in high school. Now they were laughing because the boss had put a target on my back, and they didn't want to be next. I didn't say a word the rest of the call. Didn't even flinch when he joked about making weekends part of our regular hours, since the supply chain doesn't take naps. Just clicked leave meeting and stared at my screen until my reflection looked like a stranger. I submitted a formal complaint to HR the next morning. Spent 2 hours writing it, rereading every word like it might be used against me in a courtroom. Attached emails, Slack receipts, screenshots of the schedule. I even included timestamps. The response came 2 days later, a bland beige email with a subject line that said nothing and a tone that said everything. After review, we find no breach of policy. Your concerns are noted. Please prioritize team cohesion and remain open to feedback. Cohesion, feedback, all of it code for stay quiet. I stared at that email for a long time, then printed it out. I added it to the manila folder in my purse I'd labeled insurance. I was starting to feel like a bad detective in a TV drama, piecing together a case no one else believed was happening. Except it was happening. To me, to people I cared about. to everyone too afraid to say it out loud. That Friday, while pretending to fix a mislabeled shipment in the warehouse, Mike from receiving slid up beside me. Mid-40s, Union Dad energy. Always smelled faintly like WD-40 and spearmint gum. I saw your name got added to Sunday's roster again, he muttered while pretending to scan a box. Third weekend in a row, I said. That's not legal, he replied, almost too softly to hear. I looked at him. You sure? He nodded, still staring straight ahead. If you were salaried, maybe. But hourly? Nah, they're not paying you. That's wage theft. You gonna say something? He gave a sad little chuckle. I got 3 kids and a mortgage. You think I want to end up restructured like Ellie in procurement? We stood in silence for a second before he walked away, leaving behind a question I couldn't unhear. I went home that night and did something I hadn't done in months. I poured a glass of wine, sat down, and backed up every single document I had onto a flash drive. The folder labeled insurance became evidence. I added a subfolder called Darren BS. Every Slack ping became potential proof. Every schedule change, every denied PTO, every passive-aggressive email from HR got dragged and dropped like I was building a library of sins. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but the fear in my gut had started curdling into something sharper, something with teeth. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was watching. And I was waiting. The auditorium smelled like cheap carnations and overspritzed body spray. Folding chairs groaned under the weight of tired parents. A half-broken mic squealed as the second graders filed onto the stage in wrinkled costumes and glitter glue crowns. I was supposed to be clapping, cheering, maybe even recording on my phone. Instead, I was clutching the edge of my chair like the floor might tilt and swallow me whole. 2 back-to-back weekend shifts, 14 hours each. No aught, no breaks, no backup, just me, 6 broken pallets, a busted barcode scanner, and the sound of Darren's smug voice echoing in my head. You're a team player, right? I didn't hear my daughter solo. I didn't even see her walk on stage. Because somewhere between the curtain opening and the first verse of this little light of mine, the lights flickered, the sound drained, and I slumped forward like a marionette with its strings cut. Next thing I knew, a school nurse I vaguely remembered from a parent-teacher night was pressing a wet paper towel to my neck. You fainted, she whispered, as my daughter stood a few feet away, looking like she'd seen a ghost, and maybe she had. I'm okay, I lied, even as my limbs felt like they were made of wet sand. Just dehydrated, she didn't answer. Just stared at me with eyes too wide and old for an 8-year-old. Her glitter crown was tilted sideways. I reached out to fix it. My hand shook. On the drive home, she sat quietly in the back seat, legs swinging in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke. Why do you let them treat you like that? I couldn't answer right away. My mouth opened. Nothing came out, because what do you say when your kid calls out a truth you've been too tired to face? I don't let them, I finally said. I just have to. Why? She asked, not angry, just curious. Like she was trying to understand the rules of a game no one explained to her. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat there with the engine ticking and my dignity curled up in the glove compartment like a crushed receipt. That night, I stared at the ceiling instead of sleeping. Every muscle in my body buzzed with exhaustion, but my brain wouldn't shut up. Quit, just quit, walk away, find something else. But then what? Food stamps? Temp jobs. Telling my daughter we might lose the apartment because mommy finally stood up for herself? I could barely keep up with rent with a job. Without one, we'd be living in my rusted-out Corolla, eating ketchup packets and library Wi-Fi, so I got up. I made lunch for tomorrow. I ironed my shirt. I reset my alarm for 4:45 a.m. like a good little worker bee, and I cried while brushing my teeth. Quietly so she wouldn't hear. I hated them. More than that, I hated the version of me that let this happen. That swallowed the insults, the unpaid hours, the migraines. I'd let survival become submission. And now my daughter thought being treated like garbage was something her mom allowed. Something had to give. I just didn't know what yet, but I felt it somewhere under the fear and the fatigue and the paycheck-to-paycheck obedience. There was something waking up. Something older than my exhaustion. Something loud, maternal, dangerous. I kissed my daughter goodnight and watched her drift off to sleep. And I whispered to myself, not much longer. I found his name in an old Gmail thread titled Free Clinic Pizza Friday. Back when I used to volunteer at a labor rights nonprofit before life turned into a hamster wheel dipped in debt. His name was Joel, nerdy, sharp, always hitting stained fingers and a tendency to start sentences with technically under statute. I hadn't talked to him in 5 years, didn't matter. I was out of lifelines, and something about collapsing in a school auditorium while your daughter sings about hope will make you dig through digital cobwebs like a raccoon in a dumpster. I emailed him. Kept it short. Hey, it's Rebecca. Remember me? I might need help. He replied within an hour. You still owe me a slice. What's going on? We met at a diner just off I-70. I ordered coffee and stared at it like it might solve my life. He brought a worn messenger bag, no laptop, just a yellow legal pad and a pen already clicking before we finished hello. I handed him a flash drive across the table like it was plutonium. Schedules, Slack threads, emails, pay stubs, even the PTO requests that went missing, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Joel plugged it into his tablet and started scrolling. He didn't talk much, just flipped through files, nodded to himself, muttered a few Jesus Christs under his breath. After 10 minutes, he pushed his glasses up and looked at me like I'd handed him a loaded weapon. "You've got a goddamn gold mine here," he said. I blinked. "Really? Rebecca, they're in violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act at every level. This isn't just unethical, it's illegal. Wage theft, retaliation risk, hostile work environment, hell. They might have cooked their books just to dodge OT payouts. This isn't just a case, it's a bullseye." The room swayed for a second, not from fear, but from something I hadn't felt in months. Control. "You sure?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Joel leaned in. "I've worked class action suits that were flimsier than this and still settled six figures, but we need to play it smart. This company, they'll bury you the second they smell heat." He laid it out like a military op. "Step 1, you keep working. No changes, no confrontations, stay under the radar. Step 2, keep collecting. Anything even smelling like retaliation, log it. Step 3, you let me build this airtight. I'll loop in a contact at the Department of Labor when we're ready." Not before. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. For once, someone believed me. Not just believed, validated me. All the late nights, the paranoia. Paper trail I'd been building like a conspiracy theorist with a corkboard. It meant something. But Joel added, voice lower now, "One slip and they'll can you before you hit the exit. Companies like this, they've got lawyers on retainer and NDAs ready to fly." "Got it," I said. "I'll keep quiet." He handed the flash drive back like it was forged steel. "No cloud backups, no emailing yourself, air-gapped only, and get a burner flash drive for day collection. Hide it well?" I didn't tell him, but I already had it hidden in an old lunchbox beneath the passenger seat of my Corolla, right under a half-eaten bag of goldfish and a CVS receipt from 2018. Before I left, he looked at me and said something that stuck to my ribs. "This isn't just about money, Rebecca. This is about forcing them to look at what they've become and making sure they pay for it." On the drive home, I didn't turn on music. I just gripped the wheel and stared at the road, blinking back tears and feeling finally like I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't just a tired mom pushing boxes for a paycheck. I was a witness. I was a liability. And soon, I'd be a reckoning. I chose Carla first, mostly because she'd been there the longest, and partly because she once helped me clean up a shattered pallet of glass cleaner while quoting Die Hard. Anyone who could joke about Bruce Willis while scrubbing industrial solvents off concrete at 10 p.m. was someone I trusted with my life, or at least my burner flash drive. We met in her car during her smoke break. She didn't smoke anymore, just said she needed a place to breathe without supervisors breathing back. I handed her a spreadsheet and said nothing. She scanned the dates, the shifts, the zeros under overtime, and didn't ask a single question. "They did it to me too," she finally said. "3 Sundays in April. All mandatory, all off the clock. Can you print your old schedules? Pay stubs? I've been keeping them in a binder labeled Karma. Figured one day it'd matter." Next was Dev, 26, spreadsheet wizard, anxiety built into his DNA like bad Wi-Fi. Always wore noise-canceling headphones even when they weren't plugged in. I caught him in the break room, handed him a sticky note that said, "Need 5 minutes. No one dies, I promise." He read it, gave me a look, and followed me to the stairwell like I'd just told him the building was on fire. "Dev, I need your help, quietly, carefully, no drama." He stared at me. "Darren's schedule edits, do you have access logs?" He blinked twice. "You mean the internal revision tracker?" "Yeah, I built it." I almost hugged him on the spot. 3 days later, Dev slid me a thumb drive with a trembling hand. "They've been backdating edits. Darren's account changed over 30 entries, deleted 4, added new initials on old time cards. Anything? Obvious?" Dev nodded. "There's one email where he told HR to bury complaints. His exact words. Subject line says, 'Silence is strategy.'" I stared at him. "Dude," he whispered, "I think this is felonious." My hands shook as I backed up the drive, labeled it Truth Bomb in all caps, and locked it in the glove box next to my emergency tampons and pepper spray. Suddenly, the fear started to peel back. What took its place wasn't relief or even hope. It was something colder, focused, like I'd been holding my breath for a year and finally remembered how lungs worked. I wasn't running scared anymore. I was hunting. I organized the whole thing like a war file. Printouts with tabs, highlighted emails, cross-reference table of shift, logs versus pay stubs versus edit timestamps. Dev made a side folder called Liability Highlights because he was a nervous genius. Carla cross-checked PTO rejections going back 6 months and found a pattern. Single mothers were disproportionately denied. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared, but because adrenaline had settled in like a roommate. I saw the finish line now. I saw Darren's smug face twisted into a snarl behind some government-issued desk as he stammered through an explanation with 3 auditors and a tape recorder pointed at his throat. Joel called me the next day. "You ready?" "I'm beyond ready." We used a backchannel. Joel had a friend inside the Department of Labor, someone whose name I wasn't even allowed to know. We used a secure Dropbox, encryption keys, the whole underground playbook. And the upload bar hit 100%. I just sat there and stared at the screen. Not smiling, not shaking, just breathing. For the first time in years, I felt taller. I went into work the next day like nothing had changed, but everything had. It started with whispers. Monday morning, Carla found her name missing from the new shift calendar. "Weird," she said, sipping her burnt break room coffee. I was down for Tuesday and Wednesday. Now I'm floating. That was Darren's new favorite word, floating. Corporate speak for invisible, useless, or about to be fired. By Tuesday, Dev called me in a panic from the men's bathroom. They wiped the tracker, he hissed. All my logs gone, like I never coded the damn system. What about your backup? I've got it, but they're watching me. Darren came to my desk and asked what I was working on, 3 times in 1 hour. He never talks to me. I think they know, that same day. Someone sent an anonymous email blast to the whole logistics team, subject line, gratitude culture, staying positive in hard times. It was full of quotes about team unity and toxicity within, and a thinly veiled paragraph about how false allegations harm not just leaders, but entire families. Carla printed it out and wrote across the top, "Nice try, Darren." The walls were closing in. By Wednesday, the real knife came. HR pulled me into a windowless office that smelled like old toner and moral decay. "Rebecca," said a woman named Diane with hair sprayed into oblivion, "we're concerned about your recent conduct. Your tone in emails has been noted. Your reluctance to participate in team building is problematic. This is your verbal warning." I looked at the file in her hand. No copies, no timestamps, just vague bullet points and a whole lot of smug. "You're giving me a conduct warning because I didn't go to Darren's pizza party?" She didn't even flinch. "We expect all employees to contribute to company culture. Is unpaid labor part of that culture?" Diane's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Rebecca. No one likes a disruptor." I walked out and texted Joel, "They're starting." HR just gave me a verbal warning for breathing wrong. He replied 1 minute later, "They're panicking. That's good. Document everything. Do not retaliate. Trust the clock. Trust the clock." That's what he always said. Like the law itself had a timer ticking down and justice was inevitable if you just let the gears grind. Thursday, the hammer dropped. Dev didn't show up to work. No email, no Slack, no warning. When I called him, it went to voicemail. Then his sister messaged me. He'd been let go for poor communication and excessive breaks. Same guy who skipped lunch 5 days a week just to debug scheduling macros for fun. They canned him without blinking. I sat in the bathroom stall after I read her message, staring at the graffiti scratched into the door, "Time theft is survival," and tried not to cry. That night, I almost pulled the plug. I looked at the burner drive, the backups, the printouts hidden under the floorboards in my daughter's closet, and I thought, what if they win? What if I lose my job, my health insurance, and this all just dies in a filing cabinet somewhere? Then my daughter walked in. "Mom, are you okay?" I wiped my eyes and nodded. "Just tired, baby." "Did someone at work yell at you again?" "No," I said, "not today." She nodded, then hugged me tight. "I hope they get in trouble." And just like that, the fog lifted. I wasn't just fighting for back pay or PTO. I was fighting so my daughter would never think silence was the price of stability. The next day, I went in with my chin high. Darren passed me in the hallway and smirked like we were co-conspirators. "Big day," he said. "Auditors love punctuality." He was bluffing, or lying, or stalling. Maybe all three, but the air had shifted. People were watching now. HR was holding meetings behind closed doors. Darren was reprinting schedules every morning, claiming technical glitches. Carla got flagged for a security review and told to hand in her badge temporarily. She refused, and suddenly the review was canceled. It wasn't just a system anymore, it was a siege, and I was right in the middle of it. Calm on the outside, fire under the skin. I didn't know when the storm would hit, but I knew this, it was already thundering. The email came at 2:03 a.m. I was up anyway, insomnia clawing at my skull like a raccoon in the attic. The subject line was short: "Receipt confirmed case #4817A." I read it twice before I let myself breathe, then a third time just to make sure I hadn't hallucinated the whole thing. Inside was a single sentence: "Preliminary investigation initiated. Further communication will follow." I didn't cry, didn't cheer. I just sat there at my kitchen table, lit by the open fridge behind me and the blue glow of justice on my cracked screen. And I deleted the email, emptied the trash, and wiped my browser history with a thoroughness usually reserved for political scandals and teenage boys. By sunrise, I had a burner phone buried under the potted plant on my balcony. The original flash drive was locked inside a hollowed-out Stephen King hardcover on my shelf. Needful things, ironically. The decoy folder labeled PTA Bingo Docs on my work laptop was scrubbed clean. Even the Wi-Fi printer cache got cleared. No mistakes now, not one, because the clock Joel had promised me, it was ticking. The call came 2 days later from an unknown DC number. A voice that identified itself only as Agent Harper told me there would be an unannounced on-site audit within the next 5 business days. The tone was calm, clinical, the kind of voice that doesn't bluff. I thanked them, hung up. Then I sat there, heart pounding like it wanted to claw its way out of my ribcage. Not with fear, but with readiness. The moment was coming, and I needed to make sure every trace of my fingerprints was wiped from the crime scene I had built. At work, I scrubbed my machine like a janitor on meth. I deleted local backups, cleared caches, wiped logs. Anything even resembling a breadcrumb back to me got nuked with surgical precision. Darren had installed remote monitoring software last month, paranoia disguised as efficiency audits. If he sniffed one irregular keystroke, it was game over. Carla stayed cool, running silent and keeping her head down. Dev was gone, but his digital fingerprints were still buried in the system, right where they needed to be. I kept my voice low, my eyes forward, my documents tight. Then Friday rolled in, smug and gray. Darren called an impromptu team meeting in the warehouse. He stood in front of us like some motivational speaker for sociopaths, pacing in front of stacked pallets like we were soldiers, and he was about to send us into war. Which, in a way, he was. There's been talk lately, he said, smiling like he'd just swallowed a kitten whole. Talk of dissatisfaction. Grumbling. People forgetting this is a business, not a daycare or a therapy circle. His eyes drifted toward me. I didn't blink. Well, let me make it simple. We're entering a phase of recalibration. Dead weight will be cut. Underperformers will be encouraged to seek opportunities elsewhere. If you're replaceable, prove it. If not, don't let the door hit you on the way out. He waited for applause, got silence. I just smiled. Small, subtle, barely there, but real. Because I knew something he didn't. He thought he was sniffing out a mole. But what he didn't know, what made my smile grow just enough for Carla to catch it, was that the avalanche wasn't coming from within. It was already rolling down the mountain, and it had a badge. It happened on a Tuesday because of course it did. Tuesdays are when nothing should happen, which makes them perfect for gut punches. I was at my desk updating a manifest spreadsheet when the first suit walked in. Black blazer, plain badge, mirrored expression. Then another, then four more. They fanned out like a tactical unit, crisp and silent, until the lobby looked like an FBI sting with fluorescent lighting. Darren's assistant Tina, poor soul, froze halfway through her morning yogurt. One of the auditors held up a badge with all the fanfare of a man ordering fries. Department of Labor. We're here for a scheduled audit. Scheduled? Sure, just not their schedule. I peeked through the glass wall from my desk as Darren strutted out of his office like the king of a burning castle. He was all cologne and charisma until he saw the badges. His smile twitched. Morning, he said, extending a hand no one shook. We're always happy to be transparent. The lead auditor, a woman in a navy pantsuit with eyes like winter steel, cut him off mid-spin. We'll need access to time card records, payroll logs, and internal communication archives dating back 12 months. Your IT team will assist. I'm sure there's a simpler way to. She flipped open a folder. Inside were copies of the exact files I'd submitted, schedule logs, altered timestamps, devs deleted revisions, and Darren's infamous silence is strategy email. His face changed like a storm cloud rolling over a picnic. Where did you get? She didn't answer. Just pointed at the conference room. We'll start there. Within the hour, the building was a hive of whispered panic. You could feel it in the air vents, paranoia, hot and heavy like steam. Carla walked past me with a coffee she wasn't drinking and whispered, "It's happening." And then my name was called. Rebecca Mason. I stood up. My knees didn't shake. My hands didn't sweat. I walked to the conference room with the grace of someone who'd already died and come back meaner. Inside were 3 auditors and a stack of printed records 2 inches thick. You need to confirm the accuracy of several documents, said the woman in the navy suit. Are you comfortable speaking on the record? I nodded. Yes. One by one, they flipped through schedules, pay discrepancies, Slack screenshots. I answered every question with calm precision. Dates, shifts, missing wages. I didn't flinch. I didn't overtalk. I didn't blink when they pulled up the exact emails Darren had tried to bury. Can you verify this was your submission? Yes. Can you confirm these edits were unauthorized? Yes. Did you feel coerced? I looked them dead in the eye. I felt targeted, and I wasn't alone. When I walked out 30 minutes later, the energy in the building had curdled into something thick and quiet. Phones weren't ringing. Forklifts weren't moving. Even the vending machine looked like it was holding its breath. That's when I saw them. 2 auditors flanking Darren as he walked toward the exit, face flushed with a color I'd never seen before, somewhere between embarrassment and rage. He wasn't speaking. He wasn't smirking. He was leaving. Tina stood behind the reception desk, eyes wide. A few warehouse workers had gathered near the time clock. One guy muttered no way under his breath, no way but yes way. As Darren reached the glass doors, he turned to look back just once. His eyes landed on me, and I smiled. No teeth, no drama. Just enough to let him know you did this to yourself. Then the doors opened, and Darren was gone. 2 weeks later, the official press release hit the inboxes. Labor Department concludes investigation, $2.5 million in fines, full restitution mandated. No fluff, no spin. Just numbers and justice, printed in sans serif font and CC'd to every last VP still clinging to their swivel chairs. The payout was immediate. Back pay for every stolen hour. Retroactive overtime, penalties stacked like poker chips. People who'd stopped believing in fairness were now receiving checks with comma placements they hadn't seen in decades. Carla cried in the warehouse. Not sobbing, just a slow, stunned tear as she read the email on her cracked iPhone. They actually paid me for my Sundays, she said. All of them. The HR director resigned the next day. Diane left behind nothing but an automated out-of-office reply and the faint scent of betrayal. Her office now sits empty, its motivational posters peeling like lies in humidity. I started getting handshakes in the hallway. Real ones. Eye contact included. People who hadn't said my name in months came up with words like "thank you, I'm sorry," and I didn't know how bad it was. One woman hugged me and didn't let go for 30 seconds. Another just nodded and slipped me a candy bar with a post-it that said, "For the fight you didn't owe us but gave anyway." The company offered me a promotion a week later, some fancy title with a window view and a lot of meetings where nothing gets done. I declined. I had other plans. Joel set me up with a contact at the state labor board. They were building a team to advise on systemic compliance violations, real watchdog work. My name came up as someone who knew how to navigate fire without catching. I took the gig. It didn't pay six figures, but it paid in dignity. And I got to spend my days making sure no one else ended up where I had, gaslit, overworked, and silent. And now I wake up before the sun because I want to, not because I'm forced. I pack my daughter's lunch without rushing, and I walk her to school without yawning every fifth step. She talks about her day, and I actually listen. The bags under my eyes are gone, so is the dread in my gut. She grabbed my hand the other morning and said, "You smile more now." I told her it's because we're safe. She didn't ask from what. She just nodded like she understood in her bones. And that's the thing, I didn't burn the place down. I didn't flip the table or torch the files or leave claw marks on my way out. I rewired it. Quietly, precisely, permanently. And sometimes that's the most dangerous kind of victory. The kind they never see coming until it's already done. What I love about this story is that it wasn't rage, it was calculation. She didn't scream. She documented, and in the end, that's what buried him. The real lesson? In the corporate world, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding the detonator. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.